Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Glenna. I'm a mental health therapist with a private practice in Torrance, California, and thank you very much for joining me for the happy hour. Today is Wednesday, March 11th. Again, thank you so much for coming. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I teach the idea of therapy as a lifestyle. This is the idea of addressing your mental health before it becomes mental illness. It means we make an intentional and concerted effort in very specific areas of our lives so that we can have a whole well-rounded experience. Okay. If your money is great, but your relationships are trash, then your mental health is going to suffer. Just examples of how we want to address multiple areas of our lives. The happy hour is a free 1 hour webinar where we learn various psychodynamic topics. It's completely free. The replay is free up on YouTube, so you can always watch the replays if you can't watch it live. The happy hour is intended for informational purposes only. It's not to be used in lieu of medication, meeting with a clinical therapist, going to group, meeting with a psychiatrist. The happy hour is intended to be for informational purposes only. If for any reason you are experiencing any mental health symptoms, please contact a licensed clinician, your primary care physician, or a psychiatrist. But yeah, make sure that you sit down and talk to someone. But we want to use this information, we want to take it back, and we want to apply it because I love giving very practical tips, things that you can apply relatively quickly. Today, we are going to get right into it. Today, we're going to talk about accepting change. Okay, accepting change. Today is Wednesday, March 11th. My name is Dr. Glenna, and fun fact, I eat grocery store sushi. I know. Not gas station, but grocery store sushi. All right. So let's talk about change, the psychology of change. The human brain prefers predictability. Humans, we prefer predictability. I always give the same example. I say when we find out that someone is pregnant, often our first question is, what are you having and when are you due? Because there's a certain part of our brain that appreciates knowing what the next thing is. We know, well, okay, are you having a boy or a girl? Like what and when are you due? How long are you going to be pregnant? How long can we expect this? Are you having a winter baby, a summer baby? These are very basic questions, but they are examples of how the human brain prefers predictability. That is why we created the concept of time, right? We can't just say, oh, when the sun is up, meet me by the tree. It's like, no, no, no. At 10:30, meet me by the tree. We created the concept of time because we like the idea of predictability. The human brain evolved to prioritize safety and survival. That's another piece of the human brain. Um, the human brain is literally designed to keep you alive. The mind thinks critically, but the brain is designed to literally make your eyes blink when you're not thinking about it, to moisturize your eyes, to make blood pump through your system, for your heart to beat, for you to breathe. Like there's certain activities that are literally intended specifically for survival. If you get too overwhelmed, if too much is happening, your body will shut it all down and you'll pass out, right? Because the brain is designed to prioritize safety and survival. Predictability signals safety. When I know what's going to happen, I know that I will be safe, or I know how I can keep myself safe. That's why haunted houses are terrifying. A fun terrifying for some people. I like to destroy haunted houses. Don't put me in one. But a fun terrifying for a lot of people because that little bit of predictable unpredictability can be fun when you know that a monster is going to jump out or shake something or make a sound effect or something. You still have an idea of what's going to come. It's not as terrifying as you're laying in your bed and you hear that same monster growl from your kitchen. Now that's just sheer terror. Okay. Predictability signals safety. When I know what's going to happen, when I know if I drive down, Western Boulevard, I'm going to hit a couple of lights, I'm going to pass the 7-Eleven, then I'm going to cross Torrance, and then I'm going to reach my office. There's a certain level of predictability, and it makes me feel safe. Okay. If I got there and all of a sudden there was a sinkhole, I wouldn't feel safe anymore because something unpredictable has now happened. On a very functional level, when life is predictable, the brain it can go on autopilot in a lot of different ways. It can conserve energy. It doesn't have to think what's happening, what's going on, am I safe? It doesn't have to think about any of those things. Um, oh, I just want to make sure that you guys can. Sorry about that. It doesn't have to predict any of those things. So it can conserve energy and it can really just focus on what's happening, right? There's different parts of memory in your brain, different ways that your brain recalls information. But your brain can just conserve energy and just really focus on what is directly in front of you. It doesn't have to remember how exactly do I get here because you know what? I know I jump on the 710 to the 105 or I can conserve energy by not having to think about every single little thing that could happen. It can also anticipate outcomes, which that again makes us feel safe, makes us able to better determine how we move forward, how we move about the country, so to speak. And it can minimize risk because the brain's job is safety and survival. So instead of always having to assess what's around every single corner, the brain can minimize risk and say, you know what? I think for all intents and purposes, we're okay. Okay. Change disrupts the system. Bottom line, change will disrupt this entire system. The brain is like, hey, I got it. We're going to wake up at this time. We're going to have this for breakfast. We're going to drive this car or take this bus or this Uber, and we're going to get from here to there. We're going to do this job. I got this on my calendar, and the brain ensures that we feel safe and we feel protected because we can reasonably predict what's going to happen throughout the day and just kind of in our lives in general. Change completely turns all of this on its head. Big change, small change turns all of it on its head. Change causes emotional distress. How so? Change introduces uncertainty. I wasn't ready for that. I didn't know what was going to happen. Okay. Or maybe we were ready for it and it still creates a certain level of uncertainty. But change introduces uncertainty. Uncertainty activates the brain's threat detection system because the brain cannot predict what's going to happen next. Even when change is positive, the brain still registers it as a potential risk. Okay, so there's distress and eustress. Distress, distress, and eustress, eustress. Distress is the type of stress that we're most familiar with, the unsettling stress, the type of stress that we find disruptive or scary or uncomfortable. Eustress is it's positive, but it's still stress nonetheless. An example of eustress might be I got a new job. I applied for the job. I interviewed for the job. I accepted the offer. I'm excited to take on the new job. It's a great thing. It's not a bad thing at all, but it still creates a certain level of stress involved with change. Another form of eustress might be getting into a new relationship, right? It's great. It's exciting. You desire that relationship. You're in the relationship because you feel like the person is a good fit for you. You feel like they're a healthy match for you. You like how you're treated. You like how you're able to treat them. It's a great thing. But there's still a certain amount of stress that comes with the change of a new relationship. Moving. Moving is only great when you get there. I don't think anybody particularly enjoys um, going through every single item that you've ever owned, wrapping it all up in newspaper and bubble wrap, putting it in a box, labeling it, picking it up, and moving it to a new location. I don't think anybody particularly enjoys that process, so to speak. But moving in general can be exciting. Moving into a new place, a bigger place, maybe buying a house or, moving out of someone else's space and into your own space can be exciting. Financial shifts, health diagnosis, depending on which way they go, right? A financial shift where you're losing money can be distress, whereas a financial shift where you're increasing money can be eustress. It's great, it's exciting, but you still have to figure out how am I going to manage this additional money that I have? Right. Oh, I make an extra, I don't know, $5,000 a month. Okay, well, how am I going to manage this in a way that's responsible so that I don't just blow it? And a health diagnosis, if you get a positive diagnosis, like, oh, okay, looks like, you're on the mend. And whatever was happening before is no longer happening. Versus actually, this is going to progress in a way where we're going to require treatment. Depending on which way it goes, it can cause either one. But either way, the brain must update its expectations. If it's a new job, that's great. But now the brain has to update how we get to work. What time do we need to leave? Do we need to dress differently? Were we working a hybrid before and now we're fully face to face? Or were we fully face to face and now we're fully remote? The brain has to update its expectations, which creates a certain level of uncertainty. Also, the human brain just struggles with change in general. The brain builds mental shortcuts called schemas. Schemas are like what the brain decides this equals this and this equals that. Think of it as kind of little freeways and little pathways in the brain of how you make sense of the world around you. When change occurs, old schemas stop working. So, old pathways to your understanding of the world around you, of the people around you, they don't work anymore. Okay. You used to think this, you got some new updated information, and all of a sudden your brain has to reconfigure your attitude about something or how you engage with something. The brain has to create new schemas, and that requires energy. That requires energy, whether you realize it or not. I think when we extend physical energy, I always say like if you're building a house and you go to the property every day and you nail and you hammer and you hammer a nail. I know tools, but you hammer a nail or you're putting up, I don't know, drywall or whatever. You can see yourself exerting physical labor. You can see your body moving and picking things up and using a different tool and setting things down and measuring. You can see the energy and the output that goes into doing this activity. When your brain cognitively, your thought process is making new adjustments to, oh, I don't live here anymore. I used to live where I was near a park and I could just go for a walk. Oh, I can't just go for a walk at the park anymore. Well, where am I going to walk? I used to live in a place that had an elevator. Oh, I don't have an elevator anymore. Okay, I have to take a flight of stairs. This is your brain having to create a new schema, a new understanding of the world and your relation to the world, and it takes mental energy. It takes thought process. It takes thinking and a certain level of intelligence to kind of figure out, okay, well, how do I move about the world now? I don't have access to that, what I used to have. So how do I move about the world now? This causes emotional distress. Not necessarily, depending on the nature of the change, it doesn't have to be the type of distress that like lays you out, but it does cause a certain level of distress. There is a thing called change fatigue. Change fatigue occurs when a person experiences repeated or prolonged change that overwhelms their ability to adapt. So typically, when we have large areas of change in our lives, new job, new house, new relationship, maybe you just got married, promotion, things like that, it takes on average 4 to 6 months to fully adjust and fully let the dust settle. But if you keep having change, if you have to move again, or if you get into a relationship and it doesn't work out, and then you jump out of a relationship, and then you're in another one, and then you're out of another one. Another time where change fatigue occurs often is in workplaces where there's a constant change in policy. And one week we're using this health system or this electronic system. And then 2 months later, we're switching to a new system, or we used to have this policy. And then a month later, we changed to another policy. And the constant change, it erodes our ability to settle. We don't have the chance to kind of settle in whatever it is that we're doing. So it's like we're changing again and we're changing again. And again, the examples that I gave are like a job restructuring, right? Your boss or whoever, the powers that be that are making the decisions for the people that actually touch it, keep changing the way that we do things. And that just gets utterly exhausting. Caregiving responsibilities can also bring change fatigue. It's like, okay, 1 minute we had to do, this for our elder parent or this for our disabled child, right? And then as soon as you master one thing, it shifts and you have to do something different. As soon as you master one medication routine, it shifts and now you have to administer a shot of some sort. That gets exhausting. But the ongoing uncertainty, the chronic stress, we develop fatigue. It's not that it can't be done, but we develop fatigue against having to constantly adapt to the change that's happening. And some examples or some symptoms of change fatigue are just irritability. Okay, so you wonder why there's no morale at the job. It's because keep shape shifting, keep changing the rules around, and nobody can get settled, and nobody can feel a sense of mastery over their task and their responsibilities. Overall exhaustion. And I know the time just changed and it is kicking my butt. but we press through. But just exhaustion from constantly having to change and shift. Decision fatigue is another type of fatigue that kind of goes along with change fatigue. We often get tired of making decisions. If you've ever like done something from the ground up, like say you've moved into a house from the ground up, and at first it sounds like, oh my God, this will be so much fun, picking out the furniture and the drapes and the throw rugs and putting it all together will be so much fun. Or if you've like remodeled a kitchen, and you have to think about, oh, I'm gonna look at the different tile options and the different handles for the drawers and things like that. You quickly realize decision fatigue is real, and having to make a decision for every single aspect of every single thing, or even like planning a birthday party or a wedding. And somebody's like, well, what color do you want the ribbons? You're like, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. They don't even have to match. Decision fatigue comes literally when you have had to make too many decisions, too many consecutive decisions, and you're just exhausted. Um, and also just a decrease in motivation. When change comes too frequently, and again, you don't have the time or the ability to really master any aspect of what's happening, your motivation for really engaging decreases. It's like I don't even want to be involved. Just you guys do what you do and let me know when you're done. Okay. The brain is working overtime trying to recalibrate. The brain is always like, okay, let's create a new schema. Let's create a new way of interacting with the world. Oh, that's not going to work. Do it again. Do it again. Like I mentioned earlier, if you are exerting physical energy, if you're outside, running track or something like that, you can see your body exerting the energy. When these things are happening mentally and internally, you can't see the amount of energy that is being put out, but trust it is actually being put out. Distress tolerance. Distress tolerance is a person's um, ability to experience uncomfortable emotions without immediately trying to escape them. Okay. Your distress tolerance is a person's ability to experience uncomfortable emotions without trying to escape them. It's not about enjoying the discomfort, it's about surviving it without making the situation worse. What does this have to do with change? As we talk about how the brain reacts to change and why humans have difficulty with change, one of the things that comes up is a low distress tolerance. Okay. If your ability to experience uncomfortable things without immediately trying to escape them is low, when change comes, you are immediately agitated. As soon as someone says, hey, we're actually going to switch it up, we're going to change the schedule. If your distress tolerance is low, you're like, what? Change the schedule? What are we doing? Okay. If your ability to sit with discomfort, to sit with the change, to sit with the time that it takes for your brain to come up with a new schema for how you interact with the world, if your distress tolerance is low, then you are probably very adverse to change. And what we really want to focus on is that moments of intense fear or discomfort are not signs of poor coping. They are signs that the nervous system is responding to uncertainty. So learning to tolerate these moments, it builds resilience, not resistance. It builds resilience. So even if you get some information that means that something is about to change, whether it's positive or negative, depending on your life and how you see it, having a moment of discomfort, having a moment of fear, it doesn't mean that you're struggling to cope with it, right? It's just a human response. It's the nervous system is responding. The nervous system is trying to adjust to a perceived threat. Okay. The brain views change as potential threat. So it's your nervous system trying to say, wait, are we safe? Because I thought that when we did this, that equated to safety, but now we're changing. So are we safe? It's your brain just trying to figure it out. So taking a moment to feel a little something or to feel a big something, that in and of itself is not the problem. A low distress tolerance is when change happens and you have a really difficult time adjusting. Okay. So we want to make sure that we increase our distress tolerance. It's not about enjoying it. It's not about accepting it either. It's not about saying that I'm just going to accept the suffering quietly. It's not that, but it's recognizing that when change is upon us, there are times where we do have to sit with the discomfort of it. If you're moving houses, right? It might be uncomfortable to get in that moving truck. It might be uncomfortable to get all of your boxes out of one house into a truck and into another house and then unpacked, right? But that's a moment of distress. And we want to be able to tolerate um, tolerate distress so that we can effectively accept change. How threats register in the body. The brain encodes information as a threat and provides a somatic response. The brain encodes the information that you get. The brain sees things, perceives things, and change can be perceived as a threat. And then it gives you a somatic response. Somatic is what has to do with the body. For next week's happy hour, I'm going to go more into somatic healing, more into how we heal things that happen inside the body. Okay, so stay tuned and we'll get more into that next week. But the brain gives a somatic response. Somatic means a physical response in your body. When the brain perceives a threat, the amygdala activates and the stress response also activates, and the body prepares for survival. I need you to understand how dramatic the brain can be. Okay. Your boss comes in and says, we're going to move our staff meetings from Tuesdays to Wednesday mornings, right? Your brain hears this information, realizes that there is a change, and perceives it as a threat. It goes to the amygdala, the little almond shaped part inside your brain that determines whether something is scary or not. And the amygdala sends a stress response to your entire body. Okay, the somatic responses can include an increased heart rate, muscle tension, shallow breathing, stomach discomfort, heightened alertness. The body reacts before the mind fully processes the information. Okay, so your boss says, hey, we got to move that staff meeting from Tuesdays to Wednesday mornings. And you're like, but I got to take my kid to school. Your body gets the same visceral, physical response that it gets if a rabid dog is chasing you. Okay. The increased heart rate so that the blood can pump faster through your body. The shallow breathing so that you can run faster because you can't really run fast when you're like deep breathing unless you're some sort of a cross country runner. Then you guys have a different skill set. But the stomach discomfort, the heightened alertness, all of this because your boss said we got to change the staff meeting from one day to the next. Okay. It is a visceral, physical response in your body that is intended to prepare you for survival. Your brain thinks when we hear certain types of change that we are threatened, our existence is threatened, our survival is going to be threatened. And we register a physical response before our mind, which thinks critically for us, has the ability to fully process the information. Okay. Going back to what I said about distress tolerance, if you get that physical response and you have a low distress tolerance, you will believe that that physical response is reality. And you will get that physical response and live in a high level of distress. And what we ultimately, which is what we're going to touch on by the time that we end today's webinar, is what do you do with it? Like, how do you address these feelings? But I just wanted to make you aware that your body will give you, or your brain will give you a very strong response to change because it often registers change as a threat. In the mind, the loss of control feels scary. When we can predict or perceivably, when we can perceivably predict what's going to happen, we feel safe because it makes us think that we're in control. So when I can say, oh, I'm going to drive down Western Boulevard, I'm going to cross Torrance, and I'm going to turn right into the parking lot in order to get to my office, it makes me think that I am in control. So if they close down Western Boulevard from the 405 all the way down, the loss of control can feel scary. When the control disappears, the brain all of a sudden experiences uncertainty. It's like, wait, what do we do? Everything that I had on my little autopilot, the way that I pictured it in my head is no longer happening. Now I feel uncertain. What do I do? I also feel vulnerable because I don't have my armor up. I can't say what's going to happen. And so you could attack me now. I can't predict what's going to happen. I don't know how I'm going to keep myself safe. And then the unpredictability also makes you feel like you are out of control. Again, these experiences activate survival responses. Let's put this into again, some real life things. Let's just say your teacher's like, pop quiz. You came to class, you brought your notebook, you brought your tablet, you brought your MacBook, and you were like, yeah, we're just going to take some notes today. And then your teacher goes, we're going to take a pop quiz, and it's going to be 10% of your grade. The loss of control can feel scary. And so our body responds, our mind responds, and our mind thinks that we are in danger because we've lost control of the situation, right? We can't say what's going to happen, and there's too much uncertainty for us to feel safe again. And also the mental load, again, going back to change fatigue, decision fatigue, the mental load that comes with re-figuring out something. You thought that you had it all figured out. I know that's one of my pet peeves. Re-solving problems is one of my pet peeves. If I've already solved for X, if I've already figured out what I'm going to have for dinner, and if the restaurant is closed, I'm like, ah, now I got to start the whole process all over again, right? So the mental load can actually be very exhausting. Adapting to change, it requires you to make some new decisions. Adapting to change requires decision making. It requires emotional processing. It requires planning and problem solving. And this creates mental load. Mental load is like your brain has to actually think, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to handle the situation? How are we going to fix this? How are we going to eat? Where are we going to sleep? What hotel are we going to stay at? I know I planned a trip with my sisters, and 2 weeks before, the hotel just canceled my reservation for one reason or another, right? And it was like, the decision making, the emotional processing, the problem solving. Got to solve the problem. Flights are bought. Got to solve the problem. But it creates mental load. And even positive change can feel exhausting because the brain must continuously update expectations. Continuously update expectations. Again, you applied for a job on a whim and you got it. You got hired. But even now, you have to update your expectations of what the rest of your year is going to look like. You had a trip planned, or you planned on visiting a friend in Kentucky for 2 weeks because you work virtually, and now you have to update your expectations on what's going to happen. So when we talk about accepting change, we're talking about your ability to accept change that you don't desire and that you don't like, but we're also talking about your ability to accept positive change and acknowledging the fact that even positive change can be a bit distressful. Another factor is attachment to certain habits can make change difficult. Habits reduce mental effort. Habits reduce mental effort. If you think about things like your bathroom and how you have your bathroom set up, you have a habit of putting your hairbrush in a certain place, putting your toothbrush in a certain place. You have a habit of the order of how you do things, whether you brush your teeth before you get in the shower or while you're in the shower or after you get out the shower. But you have a habit of how you do things, and you just kind of go in and you do things according to your habit, or even in the kitchen, right? You won't hear very many kitchen examples out of me because anybody that knows me knows that ain't my spiritual gift. But maybe when you're in the kitchen, you have a habit of how you lay your food out, or how you prep your food, or how you season your meat, for all you people that can cook. God bless you and cook for me, please. I'll bring my Tupperware. But you have a habit of how you do things. And change makes it so that you can't utilize that habit anymore. Okay. So now, again, we have to utilize brain power in order to create a new habit. And attachments to certain habits can make certain changes difficult. If you have a habit of brushing your teeth before you take a shower, but now you're married and your partner takes a shower before you, but when you turn on the sink water, it messes with the shower water, you got to change your habits. And the attachment to, but this is how I do it. This is how I do it. This is what I like to do. This works for me. This works. I like to wash my clothes, keep my clean clothes in the baskets by the bed for a week and a half, and then I go back and do it all over again. This works for me. My attachment to this habit works for me. And when it's disrupted, the brain has to consciously process those actions. And now the routine feels unstable. Well, where am I supposed to put my clothes? Well, how am I supposed to get dressed? Well, how am I supposed to prepare for my souffle if I can't do A, B, and C in a certain order? And this increases stress, even if temporarily. It is the experience of what I know, what works for me, what I thought about previously, and I created a system for. Now it's been disrupted. What are we going to do? So we want to adjust to change, right? I always talk about very practical skills. We want to adjust to change. And so there's two things. There is grit and grief. Grit refers to sustained effort towards long-term goals despite the difficulty. There's a whole book on grit. I have it in my office. There's a whole book on grit. It's a great book. It talks about the research behind people that employ grit in their overall lives. People who adapt well to change often demonstrate persistence, emotional flexibility, and willingness to try again. Grit is not about stubbornness. It's the ability to stay engaged during discomfort. Okay. So again, similar to, similar to distress tolerance. It's not about enjoying it and it's not about living there. But grit is your ability to sustain your effort to keep moving in a certain direction, even if something is uncomfortable for the moment. So going back to distress tolerance, if you have a low distress tolerance, meaning all of a sudden you act out when things get uncomfortable, grit is one of the things that helps you to adjust to change. It's being emotionally flexible. It's recognizing, like, oh, change happens. I'm going to be okay. Acknowledging this is uncomfortable. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but it won't necessarily be uncomfortable forever, right? Change is only uncomfortable kind of in the middle. And then we get to the other side and we can all adjust and we can all move forward. So grit is one of the things that we want to employ when we are talking about adjusting to change. Again, it's not about stubbornness. It's not about like enduring or just dealing with something that makes you uncomfortable, but it is your willingness to get back out there, your willingness to put more thought into, all right, how are we going to adjust? Okay. My partner needs to take a shower. The sink messes with the shower water. How can I adjust my schedule? How can I adjust my habits? How can I adjust my routines to accommodate this newfound change? Grief. Grief helps you to accept change, and grief helps you to process the loss. Oftentimes, when we think about grief, we think about it in terms of like death of a person, but we grieve any loss, meaning we grieve loss of relationships, loss of expectations. This is the one often where people will try to convince you that you don't deserve to grieve, and that's just not true. If you had an expectation that something was going to happen, you had an expectation that you were going to move across the country, and you were very excited about it and something fell through and you weren't able to do it. You are allowed to grieve that opportunity. You are allowed to grieve your identity, right? Maybe you were, a single woman out living your best life, going to Paris at the drop of a hat. And then you decided to get pregnant and have a baby, and now part of your identity includes being a parent to a little person. So it changes your identity, right? Or maybe, you're a man that you were outside, again, you in Peru at the drop of a hat. But then you decide, no, I want to take on a partner. And part of your identity now includes being a partner to another person. You can grieve your identity because there was change involved. You can grieve your plans for the future. Plans that fell through aren't going to happen. Some of us may have had plans to travel internationally, and there are some places where, as an American, you might not want to go today. Maybe not today. Maybe give it a month or two or six, you know. But maybe you had some plans to go somewhere, and you're realizing that it might not be the safest to move around right now, right? So you grieve your plans, you grieve the ideas that you have for yourself. Grieving allows the brain to update your reality. When you take the time to slow down, to be sad about it, to shake your fist to the heavens, to process it, to talk about it, journal about it, walk it out, exercise it out of your system, when you acknowledge the feelings and the experiences that you're having and how uncomfortable they are, and like, oh, that really makes me sad. I thought that things were going to happen in a different way, and it makes me sad that it's not happening that way. It gives your body time to process the experience, and then you can get to a level of acceptance, and then your brain can update to your new reality. Your brain can say, okay, that is, we are no longer a single woman that can be in the Bahamas by tomorrow morning, right? We are no longer that. We are now a mama, and we can bring our baby with us to the Bahamas, or we can decide to make some arrangements in order to go. You can update to your new reality, instead of living in the whole, I hate it here. I wish it was different. I like how it used to be. Accepting your new starting point. Acceptance does not mean approval. It means acknowledging this is where I am now. And once the reality is acknowledged, adaptation becomes possible. Once you just, it's just saying, it's a neutral response to what is. It's the difference between, it's raining outside and it sucks, or it's raining outside and I love it. It's just, it's raining outside. It's just getting to a neutral point of acceptance and saying, well, this is where I am. I wish I was somewhere, but I'm not. I wish it could be different. I wish I had less of this, more of that. But hey, this is my new starting point and getting to a level of acceptance. So then your brain can say, well, since this is where we are, what do we need to do? What do we need to spend more money, spend less money? Do we need to engage with friends more? Do we need to pull back? Like once you are honest with yourself about where you are and what your starting point is now, then you can actually figure out what your next steps are in terms of how to move forward. Radical acceptance. This is a psychological concept that means fully accepting reality as it exists. Just fully accepting reality as it exists. Radical acceptance does not mean that you necessarily like it. Radical acceptance does not require that you enjoy what's happening. It doesn't even require that you necessarily agree with what's happening. Radical acceptance is recognizing that resisting the reality only increases your suffering. Okay. So this is the idea again of it's raining outside and I hate it, or it's raining outside and I love it. It's just, it's raining outside. Right. It is not necessarily, I don't have to agree with it. Like, oh, okay, well, you guys have decided to go in a different direction and not promote. Okay. I don't have to like it. I don't have to agree with it, but I do have to understand that resisting. So now going back and forth, I just don't think that you guys should, and I think we need to. It's like the decision has been made, right? Getting to a point where you recognize this is what it is. The decision has been made. The car has been wrecked, right? The apartment that you wanted has been rented to somebody else. The lease has been signed by another person. It means recognizing that, again, resisting the reality of what it is not going to be helpful. It's not helpful. Radical acceptance is also not avoiding advocating for yourself at times where it is necessary to advocate for yourself. That's not what we're saying here. There are times where something happens where it's changed or it's unfair, and you do need to advocate for yourself. You do need to speak up. That's not what we're referring to. We're referring to when change happens and when it is something where it's probably out of your control. Like this train is a moving and you can get on it or you cannot. But radical acceptance is the idea of just getting to a point where you accept what it is. I also want to acknowledge positive change may still activate the nervous system. Just because it's a good thing that's happening doesn't mean that it won't make you nervous. You might still have racing thoughts. You might still have nervous excitement. You might still have tension. That's normal. Positive things that are happening. Again, you're like, oh, so we just closed escrow? So this little key, like this key is mine. I own the roots in the tree in the backyard, and I own the roof on the top of the house. Like, whoa, positive change will still activate the nervous system. So some of the things that I want you to pay attention to are challenge your feelings of worthiness. If something positive is happening to you, it's not always that it's like a bad scary, but sometimes we challenge, am I worthy of this? I don't deserve this. Sometimes other people's voices come up that tell you that you don't deserve this. You don't need all of that. You don't need a house that big. You don't need a car that expensive. Um, your worthiness starts to get challenged. Sometimes it's your own internal dialogue, and sometimes it's an outsider's voice that you've heard before. But positive change often requires you updating your self-concept. That means positive change requires you to update what you feel like you deserve, who you are, what position you should be in. You have to update your idea like, no, yes, I should drive this car. I absolutely should drive a nice car. I absolutely should own this house. I've worked very hard. I got approved and I've closed escrow. I should own this house. Yeah, I should have this job. I'm fully qualified. I'm a great candidate for it. I've interviewed and I got selected because I should be here. Sorry, I dropped an ink pen. So positive change, in order for you to accept it and not do things that kind of push it away or self-sabotage it, it will require you to update your self-concept. It will require you to think highly about yourself or to make sure that the way that you think about yourself is in alignment with the positive things that are coming towards you. We want to challenge those messages like, what if I fail? What if I mess this up? What if I don't deserve this? What if it goes away? What if they hire me and in 3 months they realize that I really don't know how to use Excel and then they fire me, right? And then you realize that nobody really knows how to, except my sister. She's like the only person that understands the formulas. Oh, and Josie. Anyway, you have to manage those thoughts and those messages that come up. You have to recognize that they are intrusive messages that are popping up, and then you have to actually manage them. Don't You don't want to take them as sound. You don't want to take them as law. You want to hear them as, oh, that's just a message. It's not necessarily real. It's not necessarily true. It's just a message. And you want to ask yourself, what belief tells me I don't deserve this? Where did that belief come from? Where did I even get the idea to challenge whether or not I deserve to drive a car this nice, or I deserve to be in a relationship with a person that treats me so well, or I deserve to have a friend group that is so warm and loving and generous towards me? So challenge those ideas of why should I feel like I don't deserve this positive thing that's happening towards me? And 10 tips for accepting change. I always do this. My lists are not exhaustive, so just because it's not on my list doesn't mean that it doesn't count. 10 tips for accepting change. One, allow yourself time to adjust. Again, when we experience change, the brain thinks that there is potential threat. And so the brain starts to send out somatic symptoms, physical responses in our bodies that lets us know that, hey, I need you to get up and be ready to fight and survive. Your body, your mind, your physical body, it needs time to adjust. It needs time to see the change, register that it's not a threat, manage your distress tolerance, manage that grit, and say, okay, it's going to be uncomfortable just for a little bit, but I'm going to be able to adjust. Grieve whatever is happening for you, whatever comes up for you, and give yourself time to go through that process. Depending on the nature of the change, it might happen quickly, right? It might be a matter of like 60 seconds where you're like, oh, wait, oh, okay, all right, I'm good, moving on. And depending on the nature of the change, it might take longer. You know, if you were married for 15, 20 years and now the change is divorce, it might take longer for you to adjust to the change, the uncoupling, living as a single person and potentially getting back into the dating world. So, depending on the nature of the change is going to determine how much time that you need in order to adjust. But we do want to make sure that you give yourself time to adjust to the change. Two, name the emotions that you feel. If you can just Google list of feelings words. I give all of my clients the list of feelings words. And in the beginning, they hate it. And then after a while, they adapt and they get used to using it. But I give them a list of feelings words because if I ask you how you're doing, everybody says happy, mad, glad, right? Like we kind of all of a sudden our vocabulary is stunted. And instead of us using a more expansive vocabulary to describe how we feel, we give very minimal descriptions that often aren't very accurate. Whereas if you use the list of feelings words, you know what irritated means, you know what abandoned means, but when you see it on the paper, it jumps out at you in a different way. When you can name the emotions that you feel, then we know exactly how to handle them because how we handle feeling disillusioned is different than how we handle feeling irritated. So, when you are working through accepting the change, if you can name the emotion that you're feeling, then we know what aspect of the change is most difficult for you and where you need, what area that you actually need help with. Focus on what remains stable. When we're talking about change, everything is not changing, right? Even if you're moving from one house to the next, well, your couch is going. Okay. Your bedding, something, your favorite mug is going. Something is stable in the midst of all of the change. If you are, if you're a graduating senior and you're getting ready to go off to college, something is stable. The numbers in your phone are stable. Your friends are still your friends. Your social media handle is still your social media handle. Like there's something that is a constant while all this other change is going on. Even if you have multiple major life changes, which can be very difficult to handle. Again, it goes back to decision fatigue and change fatigue. So even if you have major life areas, multiple major life areas where it just feels like all of the balls are moving and shifting around, focus on what remains stable because no matter what, there's something that's a constant. Your best friend is still a constant. Your sibling still a constant. Something is constant enough that can give you something to look at and to focus on in the midst of all of the change that's happening. Maintain routines whenever possible. So maybe you like your cooking routine, like you prep your food or you batch make your food on a certain day while your work schedule is changing. Keep that same routine. Or maybe you go to the gym, 5 days out of the week, every day at 5:30, but now your work commute's a little further. Okay, well, keep your routine, right? Like keep something in your life that helps you to feel grounded, that helps you to feel like yourself, that helps you to feel like you have a handle on something so that you can feel a level of certainty and security in one area of your life, even if another area of your life seems to be shape shifting. Practice distress tolerance skills. So, again, your distress tolerance, it's not about comfortably just accepting whatever happens, but it is your ability to endure just during the change, just during the moments of distress. So that might look like some ways of keeping yourself calm, again, like deep breathing, journaling, going for a walk, somatic yoga. We're going to talk more about somatic yoga next week, but doing some things that help signal to your body that you're safe. Deep breathing signals to your body that you're safe. Shallow breathing signals to your body that we got to breathe fast like we're running. Deep breathing signals to the body that we are safe and that we are calm. You can't take a deep breath in the middle of a fight, right? It's just, again, unless you're some sort of professional or something. But if you're in the middle of a tussle, you can't take a deep breath. Like it just doesn't work like that. But when the times where you can take a deep breath are when you are calm and when you are safe. And so it signals back to the body that you are calm and that you are safe. Okay, just some examples of things that you can do to practice increasing your distress tolerance skills. Seek support from trusted people. Seek support from trusted people. Everybody is not there for you. I think I've talked about this in one of these happy hours, talking about selecting safe people. Oh, pick your apples. It was that one. Selecting safe people in your life and understanding that just because they're in your life, it doesn't mean that they're emotionally safe, and it doesn't mean that they are responsible for you at that level. Okay, so if something has happened as a major change at work, processing your feelings with your boss might not necessarily be the person. You might need to go process your feelings outside of the office or with a coworker that better understands because your boss may have been the one to make the decision. So making sure that you are selecting a safe person to process your feelings with is a really big deal. And break change into smaller steps. How do we eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So break change into smaller steps. Instead of saying, I have to move, say, I need to clear out the corner in the living room first. I need to schedule a yard sale. I need to schedule for the people to come pick up the furniture that I'm not going to keep. Break things down into smaller steps. I'm very much still a pen and paper girly. I like electronics. I appreciate a list that I can carry with me in my phone, but also handwriting things, handwriting a list always helps. A brain dump is amazing for this. With the brain dump, you write down everything on just a blank sheet of paper, and I mean everything. I need to go grocery shopping. I need to pick up something from the cleaners. I need to get my taxes done. I need to make a hair appointment. Every single thing that you can think of, you write it down on one piece of paper, and then you go back and you sort through it according to the priority of when it gets done. So some of that stuff, it might be like, oh, I need an oil change, but I can wait 2 more weeks, but I need to call the dentist today. Right? So you break it down into smaller steps according to the priority. And again, in terms of the change, you break the change down into smaller steps. Same thing in terms of priority, what needs to be done first. Um, you challenge your catastrophic thinking. Catastrophic thinking is when you think that the absolute worst is going to happen. Like, oh, If I have to move into that new department, it's going to be terrible. The people in there are awful. And we immediately think that it's no way that it could possibly be a positive experience, right? So we challenge the catastrophic thinking, like, okay, is it for sure going to be the worst thing ever, or will it just be a difficult change, right? Is it going to be this commute is going to be awful? I'm never going to get to work on time. Well, is it that you're never going to get to work on time, or do we just need to wake up a little bit earlier and leave a little bit earlier? So challenge that catastrophic thinking and practice self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. I know it's weird. Be kind to yourself. Say nice things to yourself. Be compassionate to yourself and constantly remind yourself adaptation takes time. It takes time to do something different. Again, like I mentioned before, major change takes about 4 to 6 months to adapt to. And so just give yourself time to adapt. Okay. That is what I have for today. I'm currently accepting new clients in the state of California. If you are interested, you can visit drglenna.net and I would love to work with you. And with that being said, thank you very much for coming to the happy hour. If you have any questions, you can throw them in the chat. Just make sure that you keep your cameras off and your microphones muted. But if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Oh, also, if you have suggestions for happy hour topics, if there is something that you would like to hear about, if there's something that you're curious about, something that you read about that you would like for me to talk about, I'm more than happy to take suggestions. You can email me. You can respond to the email that you receive with the link and everything, and you can send that out to me.